Hello everyone. Welcome to Law Simple, Pure and to the Core. Dr. Vaishali here. Today's topic of discussion is fundamental rights. What is the meaning of fundamental? Fundamental means basic. Fundamental rights are basic human rights. These are the rights you get at the moment of birth by just being born as a human being. They are given to you at the moment of your birth and they stay with you till you are alive. Even if you don't want them, you have no right to transfer them. So a person cannot say that I don't want my freedom of speech and expression, I want to sell it. No, he is not allowed to do that. These rights are inalienable. Even if you don't want them, they will stay with you till you are alive. So these are fundamental rights. Constitution of India by part 3 provides for 7 fundamental rights. Lots of people say that there are 6 fundamental rights, but there are 7 fundamental rights. I'll explain how there are 7 fundamental rights. So let us quickly go through the history or origin of fundamental rights. Roots of these rights are traceable back to Magna Carta, 12th century, Britain. So Magna Carta was the first declaration of rights of people which was condensed in England's Bill of Rights. Again, which is manifested in US Bill of Rights under US Constitution and then France Declaration of Rights of Man. While making Indian Constitution, all 3 documents like England's Bill of Rights, then US Bill of Rights and France Declaration of Rights of Man was referred and then fundamental rights were made. Article 12 to Article 35 speaks for fundamental rights. Part 3 of the Constitution speaks for fundamental rights. These rights are protected under the Constitution itself. They are not protected under any other law but by the Constitution itself. So they are given by the Constitution, they are guaranteed by the Constitution, and then again they are protected under the Constitution by providing Article 32. Why these rights are provided under the Constitution? As you all know, Indian law is derived from British law, or lots of provisions of Indian law, they are taken from the British law. In Britain, there is no written constitution, but in India, we do have a written constitution. And written constitution provides for fundamental rights. So why fundamental rights are included in the constitution? When Britishers left and we formed a democratic government, it was a newborn democracy. And our Constituent Assembly wanted to guarantee certain rights to individuals as a matter of right and which should be beyond the legislative ambit or which should be beyond the reach of politicians, and that's why they are provided under the Constitution, because Constitution is not easy to amend, and again part 3 is not at all easy to amend, and that's why to assure certain rights as a guarantee they are provided as a fundamental rights. There are total seven rights as I provided, Article 12 to Article 35, and these rights are available to whom? Some of the rights are available to citizens, some of the rights are available to citizens and non-citizens, as well as corporations and companies. So let us go through each and every fundamental right one by one. Certain basic characteristics or important features of fundamental rights. It is justiciable. Justiciable means you can go in a court of law if these rights are violated. So if your freedom of speech and expression is violated, you can go and file a suit in a court of law as a matter of right, and judiciary has to entertain it. So that's why they are justiciable, means they are enforceable through the system of law. So fundamental rights are justiciable, means they are enforceable in a court of law. Now, fundamental rights are not absolute. They come with certain restrictions, and against certain reasonable restrictions can be put on fundamental rights. So, they can be suspended during the emergency except Article 20 and 21. So fundamental rights are not absolute. Certain restrictions can be imposed on fundamental rights. Next, fundamental rights can be amended by which process? By the process of constitutional amendment under Article 368 of the Constitution itself. So Usual legislative power is making an act like IPC, but Parliament, while exercising constituent power, okay, which is given under Article 368. So which is given to legislature under Article 368 is not usual lawmaking power, but it is a power by which it can make some amendments in the Constitution of India. So fundamental rights can be amended. There are certain restrictions and rules and case laws. We'll go through it later. But prima facie, yes, fundamental rights can be amended under Article 368 of the Constitution by the legislature. Now, they can be suspended also during emergency. So, yes, and again, they can be restricted in an area which has been placed under the martial law or military law. So if military law is imposed in certain area or martial law is imposed in certain area, in that area fundamental rights can be restricted as well. How many types of fundamental rights are there? Right to equality, which is provided under Article 14 to 18 of the Constitution of India. So those are the fundamental rights relating to equality. So equality is a theme which is provided under the Constitution. Then there are right to freedoms. So various freedoms are provided under Article 19, 20, 21 and 22 of the Constitution of India. So right to equality is provided, right to freedom is provided, then right against exploitation are provided by Article 23 and 24 of the Constitution of India. Afterwards, right to freedom of religion is guaranteed under Article 25, 26, 27 and 28 of the Constitution of India. Afterwards comes cultural and educational rights provided by Article 29 and 30, and then comes the ultimate right, which I call right number 7, that is right to constitutional remedies, and which is provided under Article 32 of the Constitution of India. So let us go through these articles one by one. First article in the theme of fundamental rights is provided by Article 12 of the Constitution of India, which provides for definition of state. Now, why definition of state is provided in the theme of fundamental rights? Because fundamental rights are provided to individuals against the state. So if your fundamental right is violated by a state, you can go to Supreme Court as a matter of right. If other rights are violated, like contractual right is violated or your property right is violated, there are other laws made by the legislature. But if your fundamental rights are violated from the state, then you have a right to go to Supreme Court. So basically these rights are enforceable against the state. So state will be a second party in the lawsuit. And that's why theme of fundamental rights begins with the definition of state. So what is the definition of state? State means and includes the government and the Parliament of India. So it means union and state legislature. Then state as well as legislature of each state in India and all local and other authorities inside the territory of India are under the control of Government of India. So state means and includes union and state legislature, union and state executive, and after that all local and other authorities inside the territory of India are under the control of Government of India. So if Indian colony is there outside the India, it will be still called as a state if it is under the control of Government of India. While interpreting state, judiciary had shown a lot of activism. So this definition is clear: union and state legislature, union and state executive, local authorities means gram panchayat and municipalities, but other authorities is the very important term, and the ambit of other authorities is widening day by day. As you all know, administrative law is a need of time. In today's welfare state, state cannot perform each and every function. So it gives some of its functions to administrative authorities, like legislature gives some powers to executive authorities, and they are supposed to make laws or they are supposed to take action in that matter. So when power of that state is transferred to these authorities, they come under the definition of state. So as the ambit of state is widening, there is lots of judicial activism which is seen, which we will of course see through lots of case laws while discussing Article 12 of the Constitution in a different chapter. Today we are just discussing the entire theme of fundamental rights, but you have to remember one thing, that because of the concept of welfare state, functions of states have increased a lot, and that's why functions of states are given to other authorities. So while these authorities are performing functions of state, or they are acting as an instrumentality of state, they will be called as a state. And if they violate your fundamental rights, you have a right to go to Supreme Court as a matter of right. So this is the definition of state. Why it is provided in fundamental rights? Because your rights are enforceable against the state. Afterwards comes Article 13. Now again, why Article 13 is provided in the theme of fundamental rights? Because if the fundamental rights are violated by the state, Article 13 acts as a supervisor. So power of judicial review is given under Article 13, and let us go see how it is given. So Article 13 defines lots of things. It defines law, it defines it provides for doctrine of severability, it provides for doctrine of eclipse, and then doctrine of judicial review is also explained under Article 13. It begins like all laws in force in the territory of India immediately before the commencement of this constitution, insofar as they are inconsistent with the provisions of this part, shall to the extent of that inconsistency be void. Doctrine of severability. Severability means separating. So if a part of a law is not in accordance with the constitution, it will be cut from that statute, and the rest of the statute will remain intact, and this is called doctrine of severability. So all the laws which are in existence immediately before the commencement of the constitution, if they are not consistent with the constitution, they will be separated from the statute. So this is doctrine of severability, which is provided under Article 13 of the constitution. And then doctrine of eclipse. State shall not make any law which takes away or abridges the rights offered by this part, and any law made in contravention of this clause shall to the extent of contravention be void. So this is what is eclipse. Eclipse means grahan. So if there is a solar eclipse, moon comes in between sun and earth, and you cannot see the sun, sometimes partially, sometimes totally, because it is overshadowed by the shadow of moon. Similarly, doctrine of eclipse provides that if a part of a statute is not consistent with the constitution, and it will be there till that inconsistency will be removed. So till that inconsistency is there, it will not be applicable. Once that is removed, it will come into operation. So that is doctrine of eclipse. What is law? In this article, unless the context otherwise requires, law includes any ordinance, order, bylaw, rule, regulation, notification, custom or usage having a force of law in the territory of India. So this is the definition of law, which includes legislative law plus administrative law plus customary law. So it includes and it acknowledges personal law also. So definition of law is really wide. And then now you will ask me, where is the doctrine of judicial review, ma'am? So who will declare that this law should be separated by applying doctrine of severability, or who will say that this law should be separated from the rest of the law by applying doctrine of eclipse? Judiciary. So every law has to be in consistency with the constitution, but who will check whether it is consistent or inconsistent? So that's the work of judiciary, and that's why doctrine of judicial review is also provided under Article 13. So definition of law is provided, that law cannot go against the constitution. If it goes against the constitution, either doctrine of severability or doctrine of eclipse, depending upon the situation, will be applied. Who will apply that? Judiciary, and that is the doctrine of judicial review. So Article 13 provides for definition of law, doctrine of judicial review, doctrine of severability, and doctrine of eclipse. Afterwards comes theme of equality, which is provided by Article 14, 15, 16, 17 and 18 of the Constitution of India. Article 14 provides for general equality, and 15, 16, 17, 18 provides for application of concept of equality in specific cases or in specific situations. Article 14 provides the state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of the laws within the territory of India. Article 14 guarantees equality to all persons, including citizens, corporations, and foreigners also. So citizens, non-citizens, corporations, and companies are also there under the protection of Article 14. Now, equality before the law. This part of Article 14 is borrowed from UK's law. As you must have seen my lecture on rule of law. Equality before law is a part of Dicey's concept of rule of law, which we borrowed from Britain. Equality before law means all the people are equal in front of a law and no special privilege will be given to any special person. And then second clause of Article 14 is equal protection of the laws. It is borrowed from the US Constitution, and it means that law will protect people equally who are equally situated. It means among equals law should be equal, and among unequals law should not be equal. You cannot apply the same law to a minor and to a major. You cannot apply the same law to a lunatic and to a normal person. Lunatics need different laws for them, and that is real equality. Otherwise, blindly applying the same law to everyone would bring lot of inequality in the society. So Article 14 provides for equality before the law and equal protection of the law. This part is taken from UK's constitution, this part UK's law. This part is taken from the American Constitution. Article 14 permits classification so long as it is reasonable, but forbids class legislation. A classification of groups of people is considered reasonable. So Article 14 provides reasonable classification amongst people, and if by making reasonable classification, if different laws are made for different people, and if it is reasonable, then it is allowed. And then that classification must be based on intelligible differentia that distinguishes person and things that are grouped from other that are left out of the group. So it should be based on intelligible criteria. There should be some intelligent standards applied while separating the people. We'll learn again this in each and every intricate detail while discussing Article 14 separately. Article 15 is about specific application of Article 14 or extension of Article 14. So Article 15 secures the citizens from every sort of discrimination by the state on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth or any of them. However, this article does not prevent the state from making any special provisions for women and children. Further, it also allows the state to extend special provisions for socially and economically backward classes for their advancement. It applies to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes as well. So Article 15 provides that no discrimination should be made on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth, but state can make special laws for women and children because in our Indian society this is treated as a vulnerable group which needs special protection, and that's why special laws can be made for women and children under Article 15. Similarly, special laws can be made for SCs and STs under Article 15. After Article 15, which provides for special laws for women and children and for SCs and STs, Article 16 assures equality of opportunity in matters of public employment and prevents the state from any sort of discrimination on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth, residence or any of them. This article also provides the autonomy to the state to grant special provisions for the backward classes, underrepresented states, SC, ST for post under the state. Local candidates may also be given preference under the topic Son of the Soil in certain posts. Reservation of post for people of a certain religion or religious or denomination in a religious institution will also be deemed illegal and will not be deemed illegal under this article. So this article provides for application of Article 14 in special situations, in the situation of employment. So after 14 and 15 comes Article 16. So Article 14 is about equality in general, and Article 15 and 16 is about application of that equality in specific cases. Now let us go through Article 17 and 18. As you all know, untouchability remained a great problem in Indian society. So Article 17 deals with peculiar problem of our country, which remained a problem in lots of other countries. In US also there was a lot of racism or racial problems because of the races which considered themselves superior and they consider the other races inferior. So this problem remained there worldwide. So in Indian society also it is a deep-rooted problem, and Article 17 deals with that deep-rooted problem. However praiseworthy the caste system was in its origin, because earlier your occupation used to decide your caste, but afterwards it got perverted and caste started decide your occupation, and which went in a really bad form. So Article 17 provides for abolition of untouchability, which is a threat to humanity and which is a punishable offense again. Afterwards comes Article 18, which is about abolition of titles. No title not being a military or academic distinction. So military and academic distinction titles are exceptions for general, major, doctor. These characteristics are exceptions. So such titles shall cannot be conferred by the state. No citizen of India shall accept any title from any foreign state. No person who is not a citizen of India shall, while he holds any office of profit or trust under the state, accept without the consent of President any title from any foreign state. No person holding any office of profit or trust under the government of India can accept such title. So earlier people used to provide titles like Raja of this, Raja of that, or Sardar, and these titles were abolished under Article 18 to bring equality. But certain academic and military designations or titles, they are still there and they are allowed under Article 18 of the Constitution of India. Article 19 provides for 6 classic freedoms which are very important to each and every citizen. Article 19(1) provides for freedom of speech and expression. So any citizen of India have a right to say anything, express anything and publish anything. So there are consequences, but they will come afterwards. But before publication or before saying, there are no restrictions. So he has a right of freedom of speech and expression. He can say anything, he can publish anything, and he can express it in any form through movies, through gestures. So that comes under freedom of speech and expression. Then Article 19 subclause B provides for freedom of assembly, that citizens have a right to assemble peacefully and without arms for a cause. So freedom of assembly is provided. Then freedom of association. So associations or different types of unions, they can be formed so far as they are peaceful, and it is guaranteed under Article 19 subclause C. Then Article 19 subclause D guarantees freedom of locomotion throughout the territory of India. So the citizens are free to move freely throughout the territory of India. They can go from one state to another state. They can get settled from one in any state they want. Afterwards comes Article 19 subclause E, that is to reside and settle in any part of India. So a Maharashtrian can go and settle in Kerala, a Keralite can go and settle in Karnataka. So that freedom is guaranteed under Article 19(1)(e). Article 19 subclause F is omitted, which was right to provide, and it is provided under Article 300 of the Constitution. So it was removed from Article 19 by 44th Constitutional Amendment, and right to property is now provided as a constitutional right, but it is no more a fundamental right. So that right is still there, but as a constitutional right. Article 20 is a very important article in the Constitution of India. It provides for three important things. No person shall be convicted of any offence except for violation of the law in force at the time of the commission of the act charged an offence, nor be subjected to a penalty greater than which might have been inflicted under the law in force at the time of commencement of offence. So if a person commits a crime in 2020, he will be subject to a law which is there in 2020. If you make a new law in 2022 and you are saying that we will try this subject under the new law, no, it is not allowed. So if a person commits crime of murder in 2020 and for that offense punishment is of 14 years of imprisonment, and then law changes in 2021, and if you are trying to apply that new law to the old case, it is not allowed, and it is called as protection from ex post facto law. So laws which were in existence at the time of commission of an offense, they will be applied, and the penalty which was there at the time of commitment of the offense, that penalty will be applied in that case. So ex post facto means which came after the facts. So these laws will not be applicable to a crime which happened at a different date. Now, second thing, no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offense more than once. There is a very nice Hollywood movie called Double Jeopardy on this clause, that is Article 20 subclause 2. Please watch that movie. It is really good movie. I'm going to make a different lecture on law movies, but that movie is really good. Do watch that movie. So what is double jeopardy? No person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offense more than once. So if a person commits a murder and suit is filed against that person by a sister of that person who is dead, that person goes through the procedure, he goes to a jail, he suffers or he goes through the entire term of punishment, and he comes out, and again mother of the person who is deceased files a case against that person for the same crime. It is not allowed. So a person can be prosecuted and punished just for once. If there are other offenses relating to that offense, then yes, they can be entertained, but for the same offense only one lawsuit will be filed, and the against the punishment which will be provided, it will be valid. So no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offense more than once. Third thing, no person accused of any offense shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. So once police get a warrant and arrest you, they tell you one thing, that you can keep your mouth shut. You are not supposed to talk anything which will go against your case. So, and that's why people say, I want to consult my lawyer. So you are not obliged, or they cannot compel you to give an evidence against yourself, and that witness will not be used, or which will not be considered as a valid witness in the court of law. So this is called as protection against self-incrimination. So no person can be compelled to speak against himself, or if the his evidence goes against his case, he can keep his mouth shut. So Article 20 provides for three things: protection against ex post facto laws, protection from double jeopardy, and protection from self-incrimination. Article 21 needs no introduction. It is protection of life and personal liberty. No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. So this procedure established by law is very important. So that procedure must be followed before a person's life or personal liberty is taken away. So that process needs to be followed. In US Constitution, there is a term called procedural due process, which is similar to procedure established by law. And then Article 21 subclause A, which provides for right to education, which is a fundamental right. So again, right to education is provided till 8th grade. So from 1st grade to 8th grade, free education is a part of fundamental rights. Now you might ask me why other years are not provided, or why education till 12 is not provided. everything depends upon the economic policy of our country. So India is in a position to afford education till 8th as a free education, and that's why this is provided under Article 21. Article 22 provides, actually which is an extension of Article 21, which provides for two things: punitive detention, or the procedure for punitive detention, and the preventive detention. So what is punitive detention? Punitive means punishment. So if offense is proved, or the charge is proved, and the person is in custody, then what process needs to be followed is provided by half part of Article 22, which deals with punitive detention. And preventive means which is done in order to prevent a crime which is going to happen. So like TADA, MOCA and these laws. So preventive and punitive detention. Punitive means detention which is done in order to punish someone, and preventive means in order to prevent a crime from happening, a detention is done. So if you think that a person is going to prevent a crime, or if a police officer feels, and if the grounds are followed, or the reasons are like justified under the law, then in order to prevent him from committing a crime, he can be detained. So Article 22 part 1 provides the first part of Article 22, specific rights to person under punitive detention, the right to be informed of the grounds of arrest, the right to consult a lawyer of one's choice, to be produced before a magistrate within 24 hours of arrest. So these are the provisions which are applicable in case of punitive detention. Now let us go through preventive detention. Second part of Article 22 deals with preventive detention. In preventive detention, persons are arrested to prevent them from committing a serious crime. Preventive detention is detention of a person without trial for a limited period when the state suspects that a person is likely to commit a crime, or is a threat to the security of the state. Such detention too is subject to some safeguards present in Article 22. Article 23 to 24 provides for freedom from exploitation, that is child trafficking, child labor is prohibited. Under 25 to 28, some religious freedoms are guaranteed. So right to practice, profess and propagate a religion is guaranteed, and some rights to religious institutions are also guaranteed under this theme. Afterwards comes educational and cultural rights. They are safeguarded under Article 29 and 30. And then comes the most powerful right, which is provided under the Constitution of India. Article 32 is like a watchdog, or Article 32 is there, and that's why you can enjoy all the fundamental rights which are provided in Part 3 of the Constitution of India. So what is Article 32? If your fundamental rights which are provided under the Constitution of India in Part 3, they are violated, any person can directly go to Supreme Court as a matter of right under Article 32, and Supreme Court has to entertain that suit. So Supreme Court cannot say that you have no authority, come to Supreme Court directly or come through the appellate way and all. Supreme Court has to entertain it. Supreme Court can issue lots of writs under this. 5 writs: habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, quo warranto and certiorari. We are going to discuss them in detail while discussing Article 32 separately. So, and this is the right number 7, that is Article 32. Right to go to Supreme Court for enforcement of fundamental rights as a matter of right. So 6 rights plus this is your right number 7. So so this theme relating to fundamental rights guarantees you 7 rights, and then certain freedoms, and then certain other types of rights relating to other types of freedoms. So this is in short. So your Constitution provides for fundamental rights. It protects the fundamental rights by providing Article 13. It provides enforcement of the fundamental rights by providing Article 32. So a jacket is provided by Article 12, Article 13 and by Article 32. This jacket protects your fundamental rights, and then our active judiciary is there to protect these fundamental rights. There are lots of case laws relating to fundamental rights and how judiciary is counting new fundamental rights which are actually directive principles under the ambit of fundamental rights. So that is a very interesting thing which I'm going to discuss in the next lecture, which is going to be on fundamental rights and directive principles. and the judicial activism. So stay tuned till my next lecture. Goodbye and good luck.